One's ready. Go!
I think long story long is probably the best description of this podcast. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the One's Ready podcast. It's me, it's Trent, it's our friend Tab Stacy. He's got a great story. We're going to talk about it. But for now, do me a favor, go over to onesready.com, check out everything that we have there. Our friends Attack Elite sent me a welcome, fun story about Attack Elite. They're awesome. They had my old address. They sent me a Christmas present to my apartment in Washington, and I don't live there anymore. So Attack Elite, I love you. However, somebody in that apartment got whatever you sent me. I hope it was nice. Go check out all the training. What's up?
It was nice.
I bet it was nice. Those guys are really awesome. Go check all the training gear for everything you need. Make sure you're following us, like, subscribe. If you like the podcast, get it in front of as many people as you possibly can. Leave us a review. Say something nice. That would be fun. Typically, everybody's mean to me. But if you could just do me a favor and leave 5 stars and be nice for once, maybe my 2025 won't end in me having to rent a Cybertruck and really get things finished, you know? Anyway, hi, Tab.
Don't write anything down, Aaron.
Not too soon to talk about Cybertrucks, is it?
It's not. No, listen, man.
I've got just a boatload of friends from all different circles sending me information, posts.
The group chat.
Sean Ryan podcast is on my queue to get in the dirty. Sean Bailey, shout out to you in New Jersey. He's literally right now living under the flight path of the unknown UAEs that are flying around. He's like,
do you mean the Chinese gravitic drive drones? Is that what you mean?
I don't know. I don't know what I mean. Chinese controlled by Iran in North Jersey, right?
Crazy.
He's like, Tab, they fly over my house and it shakes the windows. That's how big it is. I was like, Sean, come on. And he sends me a video. He sends me multiple videos of what's going on, and you could just see the lights that are coming in and stuff like that. And then you hear, so he's literally under the flight path of everything going on right now. And then I was in New York. About 3 weeks ago to kind of kick off something that I hope we talk about a little bit later with Defy, and got to see all my New York homies, and all of them were like, well, that's about what happened with the CEO that got executed assassin style. So everybody wanted to drop in on that, and then everybody wanted to drop in on what's going on with these drones. So it made for some great conversation. I had some jiu-jitsu. I got my tinfoil hat. We can go as deep as you can on that tinfoil on the mat. So it was a great combination of jiu-jitsu dorks, conspiracy dorks living in the real time.
I'll tell you what, I that is a weird thing about jiu-jitsu, but like, there are so many people. It's funny. You have these conversations when you get done rolling. You're like, oh, hey, what's going on? It's been crazy lately. And somebody's like, hey, did you know that the moon doesn't exist? And you're like, you're my dude. Come here.
Let's talk. I haven't come across from the jiu-jitsu standpoint in the jiu-jitsu community. I haven't come across any real flat earthers. And then,
oh, really? Just Eddie Bravo?
Well, I say I haven't been in the Eddie Bravo realms, but we get into those jiu-jitsu flat earthers. I was like, oh man, he's the super dork. He's checked all the boxes on this. So I was in IT sales for a little while, and one of the sales engineers that I worked with was, and I believe he had like an advanced degree in mathematics, and he was a hardcore flat earther, to which I was like, wait a minute, math proves like the most energy sufficient object or shape in all of our universe is like a spherical, right? And he was like, oh, yeah. And it was like, he was still hardcore flat earther. And I was just like, I couldn't get across it. He was one of those individuals, whatever you would talk about or whatever you say augment, he would have his own checklist down the line of like his arguments. So you had to come like full throttle if you were going to talk with them. And at that point I was just like, all right, I got to try to make some money on these sales. Let's talk about this. But he was awesome. It was like one of those, it was like, oh my God, he is a firm believer.
So we got the input. Somebody left a comment one time. This was like last week. Somebody was like, you know, man, I try to turn you guys on and listen to you guys on the way to work. And I've got like this commute, and it takes like, there's so much chit chatting in the beginning of the episode before you guys get in. You guys should really cut that out. And I was like, well, how do we do it? And he was like, minimize the talking, make sure the ad read isn't there. Just get into the topic of the podcast. And if there's anything I love, it's telling people in the comments to shut up. So it's been like 5 minutes and we haven't even like talked about why it is that you're here, and it's perfect.
We were talking about the flat earth thing. Is that not what we're talking about for an hour?
There are flat earthers all over the globe, Trent.
Sure are.
Hey, yo.
Great point by Elon Musk, who makes out. It's like, look at that word you just used.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So everybody, this is Tab Stacy, our friend Tab Stacy. He's got a long and storied career. Some would say that he is the best looking man on the face of the planet. He's got the salt and pepper going up top. He's an awesome dude. He was here in Vegas for MCon. We had a great time there, but he's got a long story behind him, and a lot of connections to Air Force Special Warfare. So Tab, just I'm not going to tell everybody. I'm just going to put the little teaser out. Did you ever serve in the military, Tab? And if you did, what'd you do and how'd you get in?
That's right. It truly goes back to where I was born and reared in Savannah, Georgia. Savannah, Georgia being a very pro-military community. We're surrounded by military installations and bases right there in the corner of the Atlantic, right there, with most notably being Hunter Armory Airfield. And it's really why I'm there, because ultimately my grandfather was stationed there on my mom's side. Met my grandmother, had kids, then along came me, right? But it's really with that relationship of 175 being there and growing up in Savannah with St. Patrick's Day. If you know Savannah, most likely you will know Savannah with its connection with St. Patrick's Day.
Good Lord.
And
danger, everybody. Yes. I'll tell you what,
I've had those full throttle experiences to where I had to call my dad to come pick me up. Literally. I'm like, Dad, you got to come pick me up. And then Savannians, or people who know Savannah, will know this. And I was so hammered about it, but I still remember telling me you got to pick me up on the corner of Whitaker and Drayton. And he's like, what? No, there's no. I'm like, Dad, I'm on the corner of Whitaker and Drayton. And for all that know, Whitaker and Drayton are two parallel lanes. So there's no corner of Whitaker and Drayton. So I get in there and I'm sloshed, and he's just like, shut up. And I'm just
no.
But then I was like, so that was one of my worst experiences, to where the great experience is meeting up with friends and family, meeting up, having enough alcoholic drinks to be responsible in what's going on.
Just a couple libations. That's all.
And then really on my mom's side, we had a family-owned business, and the family-owned business was restaurant business. And it was a dive oyster bar on River Street. And River Street's that main thoroughfare, cobblestone streets, old colonial buildings that were turned into mixed-use commercial restaurants, bars. And I had worked down there since I was 13, so I could legally work, and worked my way all the way through college, and really right before I went into the military. And just being down there, the foot traffic, having tourists come in, always busy. And it was the best and worst job ever. I mean, it was a great job in school. It was the best job I could have in college. I mean, everybody loves a college bartender.
Everybody loves a college bar. Bro, listen, man, we don't need to get into it, because we're all grown men now, and we all have we all have stories that we don't tell out in public. But I got to imagine you being a college bartender in the town of Savannah, Georgia. You're the local college bartender that's super cool, and all of those tourists are coming in there.
Yeah. Well,
come on, man.
We had tourists, and then for a number of years too, we were like a unofficial, official Ranger bar.
Oh, did you hook up with any Rangers? Sorry, I'm kidding.
It's not the SEALs.
Well, here, let me continue on this story. What was so great this place, because the official Ranger bar was an Irish pub called Kevin Barry's.
Right. Yeah.
And if you go there, it's 2 stories, and up in their second story, they have their memorial for not only Rangers, 160th, Third ID that's out of Savannah, the whole military community, 160th. And then they have the plaque of those, killed in action, remembrance. You can still see shots poured, and remembrance and celebration of lives, celebration of time of service. And it's definitely a spot where if you're in the military, you go into Savannah and you can have a pint at Kevin Barry's. Go during St. Patrick's Day. You're going to be listening to Irish folk music. It's a great environment to where our bar was, that the Rangers loved to come in there, because we had bartenders, 2 gay bartenders giving free Jägermeister shots. And so if you have free Jägermeister shots going on to a bunch of Rangers, you get everybody in there. And then so I saw the young Ranger community to the old Ranger community come in there, and it was like a mixed bag of experience, from all out brawl out fights to beating families of people who served at the Ranger Battalion for 15 something years. I've had that both experienced where, and I tell you what, you don't want to be in the middle of a Ranger fight when you got chairs that weigh almost as much as you do thrown off across from one end of the bar to the other. I got a Miller Lite bottle smashed in my head, and I like saw it coming to me in slow-mo at the corner of my eye. And it was like, bam, it was like Roadhouse classic music. And I remember like turning around, and my manager, a guy named Earl Savage, would be like, "Dad, get in there and break it up." And mind you, I'm like a 17-year-old high school kid. And
no, bro.
Thanks.
What?
Yeah.
It was just
thanks.
It was like two lawnmowers going at it. It was like a turn in the bar. And then
And I'll tell you, like, it's bad when they're fighting each other, right? The worst thing, though, is when somebody else is fighting a Ranger and you hear the worst two words that you could possibly hear inside of the bar where there are a bunch of Rangers. And that would be Ranger down. Because when people scream that, then that means every single Ranger puts aside every single one of their differences, and then they beat everybody to death that is not with their specific group.
And so that's what happened. That one experience to where I got the bottle of the head, my manager going, "Break up the fight." I'm like, "You kidding me?" And then, so from where our like main dining hall, there was like a ramp that went up to our front door. And the front door was like just two French windows, basically. All right. That opened outward. And it was like, in Charlie Brown is the character that's the dustpan or dust peg or what's his name? And it's always got a cloud of smoke going wherever he moves. And so this was that Ranger gaggle fight, that dust cloud that just moved and it went up the stairs and just shattered the front door. And then it took like 5 minutes for it to travel all of like 20 feet, right? And then everything's gone. And then there was just like a waste bin of like what happened to our existence. And then so that's when I like became friends with a little bit more friends with some Rangers because we were always kind of talking about that fight, and we were always like passing Jägermeister shots. And then going back to being in Savannah, my father had served in Vietnam. My grandfather was in the Korean War, and my father's father was in Patton's Big Red Army, heavy weapons officer that went through D-Day like. It was like D-Day plus 18 or plus 20 and fought throughout the Low Country and the hedgerows of France. And he went and he fought for 3 months and went 3 miles. And it was being in Savannah and knowing my family history and then having friends with those Rangers was like, I wanted to be an Army Ranger. That's what I want to do, and then it was being friends with those guys that were like, "Hey, we're not going to tell you not to be becoming to the Army Rangers because that's what you want to do. But if we could do it all over again, I'd check this career field out." And it's called Combat or CCT. Look up CCT, and then that's what I did. I looked up CCT, and they were like, you go to all the schools. It's so funny. It was like you go to all the schools and you get all the good gear, and it was so funny how that kind of like resonated even to like this day. That's what people talk about. I was like, you want to get the training, you want to get the good gear.
They're like, yeah, we're cool, but like, they're like, we're super cool and we love us, but bro, don't join this club if you have a choice.
Right. And then it's like when eventually I got to the 2-1, we'll go back. I'd love to go back and tell about a little bit more, but eventually guys from the 2-1.
You'd like to tell more? You are a long story long guy. I can't imagine there's any more to this iceberg. Like I want to pause you there though, like, cause we kind of like sped by it, right? Like, so you were like, oh yeah, I thought about, I was introduced to the career field, then poof, I'm at the 2-1. So, how was the transition from that? You saw some stuff, man. Like you were working at the bar, you were a college kid, you live with all these Army dudes. You kind of made the decision to go to combat control. How did you prepare yourself for going into the combat control pipeline? And then around what time is that so we can put it in context?
So it was, so originally I tried to get in 2006, went to the recruiter, and the recruiter looked at me, saw I came in with glasses. He was like, "No, you're not going to qualify. You're not going to do this. You're not going to be able to do it." And I was like, "Oh, we could try to, I mean, it was like just cut and dry like that. It's like, "No, you won't qualify because your glasses. So I was like, crap. So maybe that was 2007, late 2007. So I was kind of trying to figure out what I was going to do. Did a year of grad work, and I guess that recruiter's time in that office was up because a new recruiter came in, and that new recruiter came in and reached out to me and was like, hey, just Tab Stacy wanted to talk about combat control. And I was like, yes. And it was like, and then I said to him, I was like, yeah, I came into the office and I told him that the previous recruiter like cut me out because I was wearing glasses. And he was like, well, I'm no medical doctor, but what you should probably do is go down the MEPS and then they'll, disqualify you first. I was like, oh, what's this whole MEPS thing? And then
that's so crazy that the first recruiter was just like, yeah, right. Like, I'm no medical doctor, but I did actually read the regulations and I'm good at my job. So let's see if this thing's going to work out for you, bud. So I also like that you, of all people, like Tab, we've talked a lot, like, getting ready for MCon. You've come over to my house and had dinner. Like, we've conversed a lot. I can't imagine you just going, well, okay, and then leaving.
That there was quite honestly, there wasn't necessarily a lot more to that. I mean, you got to, I will admit, being younger, going in, already intimidated to talk about combat control, didn't know what to expect, going into the military just as a whole. You went
from literally taking one no, where the guy, you went in, you're like, I just picture you poking your head in. Hey, can I do this? And the guy's like, no. And you're like, all right, tight. And then you make it into combat control. That's hilarious.
Yeah, to be fair, there was more to that. You're not going to make it. Combat control. I mean, I was glad there was a little bit more to that. There was a little bit of gloss over it.
He's like, have you heard about SERE?
Come in, and I go down the MEPS, and everybody has a story for MEPS.
Have you heard about SERE? Trent, that is the most unnecessary stray at SERE. Okay, man. So
it's a callback. We've been on a roll. All right.
We have been on a roll. Yeah, we
making fun of SERE because we love them.
We do. Do we pick a career field to just kind of like throw strays at? It really helps people pay attention to the podcast. And SERE has been getting the direction of all.
SERE's been annihilated lately.
You're not annihilated. Listen, they're awesome. We don't have any problem with it. We have tons of SERE guys. I text SERE guys all the time. I got like 10 texts from my SERE buddy this weekend. We're talking about. We love them. We work with them. Whatever. But when you call yourself soft SERE and you have mission creep, like, it's just a whole thing. You can do it as best as anybody. I'm sorry to interrupt. There's the tangent. So anyway, through this process, you decided that you wanted to do combat control, and then here we go.
Yeah. And then so he's like, you got to go down the MEPS. The MEPS will tell you if you're good or if you're not. And I was like, oh, I understand this thing, MEPS. So I go down the MEPS, and everybody has some kind of story for MEPS. And it was like, all these people in there, different branches, both obviously co-ed, male and female. And everybody, oh, what are you going in for? What are you doing? And going to different rooms, facilitating for different tests. And the one that just really sticks out is the one that's like, you're lined up on the wall and you got to go down and grab your ankles, right? And so from at our facility, it was this, she looked like she was like 78 years old, Asian woman. And she was like 4'9", 100 pounds, right? And then you're grabbing your ankles, you're doing like the duck walk, and then you're lining up again, and then she's checking your junk, your scrotums, and she's like going down the conveyor belt, and she's talking to everyone, and then like she grabs me and she goes, "Oh no, honey, you have hernia," and I was like, "What?" And so my first obstacle in getting to the military is like I found out that I had an inguinal hernia. And that I had to get that repaired. So that was like the biggest hurdle, is like I had to have surgery even to get into the military. So it was like, which would like forecast of some of the issues of my military experience. It was like I was always banged up to begin with. Mm-hmm. So I come back, I have the surgery, I get in, and then it's like PT. And what do I got to do to PT? Because ultimately coming into combat control, you have that, it's on the pedestal, the mythical, 95% of people that apply for combat control, wash out through the various stages. And so I would say this one thing that I look back through my whole combat control experience was that set me up for success was my combatives training. And I started off boxing first. for a little bit. And then I immediately got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And it was the regiment of trying to accelerate my own Jiu-Jitsu capabilities that really helped me get into, one, I hate to say it like this, fighting shape. But it gave me that, like the pulse or the vibe of constantly being uncomfortable, working in uncomfortable situations, and really looking for that next short win, or just preparing myself mentally. It's like, Aaron, jiu-jitsu individual. Trent, I'm not sure about yourself.
We keep trying to get him into it.
I'm straight, y'all.
I've been trying to put this man in a gi since I met this guy like 6 years ago. I'm just like, hey man, if you just want to roll a little bit. He's like, nah.
I'm just a contrarian, because everybody that I know is like, man, you should come down and roll. I'm like, I don't want to. I like punching and kicking things.
Get in and drink the juice. But it's like,
but it takes time, right?
You're not going to learn everything in the first class, and it's that journey, that pathway, and that's what I kind of looked at it as preparing for my entry into the Air Force and to the combat controls. Like, set up a program, literally crawl, walk, run, sprint, and preparing myself physically. And another thing that really set me apart, I think, or not set me apart, but physically prepared me, was just a gang of pull-ups and weighted pull-ups. How that really set me up for the pipeline and set me up for doing being successful in multiple apparatuses.
Wait. So you were conditioned. You understood how long it takes to get better at things, and you also were good at pull-ups, and your grip strength was good. Aaron, have we ever talked about this for pipeline prep before?
Everybody in the comments, go ahead and tell me that Tab shouldn't have been able to succeed in the pipeline because he didn't have a 225 split jerk. Go ahead and tell me how Bulgarian split squats helped Tab get through the pipeline, and listen to what he just told you. He knew how to grind it out on the mats. He knew what shape, like what fight shape is a perfect way to put it, Tab, because I tell people that all the time. I'm like, hey man, that's tight. You've got a fast run. You can go ahead and do all these other things. Get on the roll a 5-minute round with me and tell me how you feel. And then we're going to take 1 minute off and we're going to do it again. Because fight shape is completely different. Completely different.
I will say that a place I was definitely one that struggled with running too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that I will definitely say it was running. I look back to one of my old teammates who in the community I've always looked up to, Josh Craig, and he talked about running, cows, and rucking. It was like, that's what you need to do: running, cows, and rucking. And then really, because I knew I was going to go through dive school and we're going to do so much pool work, I joined a master's swim league.
Nice.
And something that I literally just walked into was this unbelievable swimming and competitive environment swimming in my city of Savannah. It's look back, I think it's called GMAT, and it's like the youth portal of swimming for college sports, to where if you're like part of this program from a young kid and swim up in high school, you're swimming in a college program somewhere. It's I hate to say it, but I can't remember the guy's name, but it's like he's a former bronze Olympias swimmer, and then a guy that basically helped write the Navy dive book.
Oh wow!
That was helped out with the youth program, and he was like a longtime Navy diver / hippie, and we would talk about, like, I was like, hey, this is what I'm looking to do, and it's like, all right, well, let's get you in the water and start doing some of these exercises and like some confidence things. And he goes, remember, if you pass out down there, that's what they got medical people for, to bring you back. And that's like literally the mentality of him. It was like, that's what I remember being on. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. How about I just try to come up for breath or something? It was like, oh, just learn to relax and just find these small little things and don't worry about the air. And so he literally set me up. But the big thing was I remember was like, I grew up in Savannah, which is on the low country, grew up going to the beach, growing up going to pools, growing up swimming off the water, but I'd never really swam laps. Okay. And I remember joining this master's program, and the master's program was basically young professionals and adults that their thing was, instead of going out and running or doing CrossFit or martial arts, their thing was swimming. And a lot of these guys were former swimmers in college, right? And you had an A lane, a B lane, a C, and a D lane. So like how fast you were. And I remember getting in there, and I think I started out like in the D swim lane. And I remember swimming my first literally 100 meters and being like scorched and being like, what the fuck? I was like, oh shit. And we go back to talk about that roadmap of like setting yourself crawl, walk, run. And then ultimately, like going through all that, I remember swimming like my first 5,000 meters.
Oh.
And I was in the pool so long that everybody left and they turned the lights out of the pool. So I was swimming still with the live stuff. Okay. And so eventually I remember like, all right, I had to put more effort into the swimming. Right. And eventually I remember getting up, and I think I got up into the B lane. I don't think it was the C lane. I think it was the B lane. Right. And I remember getting in there, and whatever the workout was, it was like something like 8 200s, 5 500s, back to 8 200s. It was like whatever the workout was. And I remember looking at my swim lane partner, and my swim lane partner was, she was maybe like 45, like on the surface. I hate to say it, something like this. She was like dumpy looking, you know, not fit. She certainly wasn't.
You don't look at her and be like, she's going to be.
She was not looking like not looking like a fucking like a specimen that would like annihilate me in the water. And that's exactly what she did. She fucking annihilated me in the water. And we were on the you know, coming to the end of we're coming to the edge of the pool where you flip turn, and she would flip turn me. And I think she was like doing it on purpose to where she would just like drown me in her own flip turn and her wash. And I remember just being like,
well, she saw the way you looked at her, bro. It's like, oh, yeah, exactly. You don't see me as competition.
Like, I'm gonna fuck. Or she looked at this guy, and granted, like I was much younger and fit. All right, so and she was just like, I'm gonna fucking smoke this guy. This is what she was saying, and that's what she did.
She's like, your six pack is cute. But
she's turned me. I'm in her wash, going like trying to come up for air. And then I'm like in the middle of the lane, and she's just like fucking kicking by me, and I'm like I'm eating her wash in the water and stuff like that. And then afterwards she was like, hey, good job working out. And like, I could just feel like her packing the salt in the wound. And then I talked to a buddy of mine, and they go, oh, that's Sarah. She was an All-American at Auburn. And I was just like, yeah, all right, okay, cool. And that's when I was like, it goes like my different levels of jiu-jitsu. There are different levels of people. There's different levels of the people in the pool, and that's I literally took that with me through the whole pipeline. It's like, you can't look at someone and judge them by their like internal appearances, because that person either on the mats is gonna maul you up, and it's like, dude, I just got mauled up by this old dude that I thought I was going to take his milk money, or in the pool, or someone with like a ruck or running or anything like that. So I think that was a lesson that I took. It was like, never judge a book by its color. Judge a book by, you know, the material that's within it.
Well, it sounds like you're pretty well prepared, but then you actually had to go through the pipeline, right? You got past the glasses, you got past the hernia, you got past the old ladies trying to drown you in the pool, and the hippie that was like, if you die, you die. Don't worry about it. We'll bring you back. And then you ship out, you get through BMT. So what was it actually like in the pipeline? You know, because you put, it sounds like a lot of time and effort, like very focused time and effort into being successful here.
Yes. And I looking back at the pipeline, always looking back is like, woulda, shoulda, coulda known, what you don't know. That first class, CCOC, combat control orientation course. And I went in 2008, and I think they were like at the beginning of like reshaping the pipeline, figuring things out. We had like 9 or 10 cross trainees coming to our initial team that had people coming in straight from basic training. And that first I remember seeing that first PT test that 3 cross trainees came in and failed their PT test. And I remember our CCOC instructors, and I don't want to say names, and because I look back,
it's okay, Tab. Nobody listens to the podcast.
Yeah,
We
But I
say
look
names.
back
We
at
say
them.
names all the time.
All right.
I called Jim Slife a turbo dork on a podcast the other day. It's fine. He's a turbo dork.
Yeah.
He's still in. I'll call him
You can just
whatever I
say
want.
Ken, right? In 2008, he was definitely
I
there.
was gonna say, yeah, I know all those names too.
All right. So I remember, like, I look back at them when I was in orientation. I was like, oh, these fucking guys are legends, not knowing anything about in the community or anything like that. And I remember, it was Chris Seibel was one of the controllers, and I hate to say it, one of the other controllers, instructors' names just escaped me. Shit. And maybe it'll come back to me. But I remember it was like that instructor, not Chris Seibel, the other instructor, just fucking went into just a verbal beating on the cross trainees that failed their PT test. And one of them was a tech sergeant that failed in, and he came from security forces. And this controller instructor was a cross trainee from security forces. And he just took it personal to where he just fucking, not only did he smoke him afterwards, but he was like verbally beating them. And he was like, I'm fucking writing whoever this person is, and your fucking career is going to be fucking over. And he was like, you just did this to get from fucking one base to fucking down here in San Antonio or something like that. And like, you're a fucking disgrace. You come in here and you're a tech sergeant. And I just remember being like, oh, fuck. Just like standing, like sitting there at like parade rest, all different unit, locked up, being like,
desperately trying not to look like you're paying attention because you don't want to be involved. You're like, listen, homie, this is between you guys. I'm going to mind my own business. Thanks.
Right. And so that orientation course, if I remember correctly, it was like 2 weeks. And I remember it's just, we started with like something like 40 people, and then just people are like dropping like flies. But I also remember being people like dropping like unnecessarily. I was like, whoa, we haven't really even started. Or people were just get that first wave of like intimidation or challenges, and people were just like cut out. Okay. And then you can start to see from the cross trainees, to which later I look at Josh Craig, who was like probably just like, he knew this because he was a former soft TAC P and had deployed like already 4 times as a JTAC, worked with ODA teams, seasoned, savvy, the complete operator in our eyes going through the whole pipeline, and then much years later. So it was like always looking at him was like a measurement of like, okay, how are we doing, to like how much are we getting fucked up, to where it was like, if you could see he was getting hurt, and where it was like, oh shit. And that took us all the way through. I went all the way through combat control school with him, and then got down to STTS, and then I popped my knee, and then we were separated. And then back in orientation, I think that's when you're starting to see like who do you see yourself going along with the pipeline with, or then the people are falling out. And it was a quick stay there because we graduated combat control school, and then you immediately go down to Biloxi, Mississippi to air traffic control school. And then that's like the smoke course for us. That's where
your pipeline was not easy, man. Like the pipeline, for people that aren't kind of like tracking some context of this, is, when the controllers split from INDOC and they started doing the combat control orientation course and whatever, there became this thing, and we called it in the pipeline where I worked, because we saw it much later in my career when I went back to the schoolhouse to be, the instructor, then, the director of training and the ops soup. We called it institutional drift, right? And it was because these old controllers, these old heads that knew what INDOC was and knew what the selection was, every single course for you became the next crucible. Like you'd get to air traffic control school, which in theory, it's kind of like, a parallel would be when PJs are going through medical, right? You're going through your meat and potatoes of what it is that you're there to do. The combat controllers in each one of these schools would go, oh no, hey, ATC, no, this is, since we don't have like a formalized INDOC like the PJs do. Okay, orientation course is cool, but we're going to make this the crucible. And then at the next school, combat control school, they're like, okay, well, you got through ATC, but ATC isn't the crucible, combat control school is. And then you get to STTS and they go, oh no. You guys thought that those two were the gates? No, now this is the gate. And it becomes, you guys, that timeline for you, I give all kudos. You can talk whatever crap you want. I made the joke, I think, within 2 minutes of meeting you about, hey, there's a pool, you guys want to go through INDOC, and you were like, oh man, you PJs all hang on to that. But man, your path in that time was wild, because every instructor, like it's like the Michael Jordan meme. You know what I mean? Like, oh, these guys went through combat control orientation course and not indoc, and I took that personally. And then
Well,
you would just get balled up.
and at Keesler, if you let students through that failed out of CCS, you heard about
Yeah.
it as an
Yeah.
instructor. Like that it's a very small community. So like the guys coming out of orientation at Keesler, we'd be like, did you guys even do anything with these guys?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? This is the worst group of students I've ever seen in my life. And then you send them off to CCS, and you hear about it. So you're like, man, I don't want any more of my guys to fail at CCS to have my stamp of approval on their forehead, because that's that's on me. That is personal. Come on,
right.
And I think both of you guys going through the pipeline, I think you can relate to this, is that you can only really judge your own pipeline by the teams that are a little bit ahead of you and the teams that are a little bit behind you. All right.
Right.
And so that's what we did. And personally, I can look to, there was basically a core 5 of us that went through the churn that were able to look back. And there was a point we were at ATC that we were team fuck up. Okay. And we were just getting fucking hammered by our instructors. Instructors personally hated our team. And quite honestly, in the beginning, I was like, I couldn't understand why. Later into our experience at ATC, I understood why, because we had a couple guys that did some fucking dumb shit. Okay. And we would just get smoked. We would get smoked constantly. And air traffic control is like, yes, it's the physicality school that the instructors are pushing you to create that envelope so that you can go and be successful at combat control school and later, so that you don't have that high attrition rate. Like if you graduate air traffic control school, your success jumps to 95% that you are going to be successful throughout the pipeline. A couple of those instructors that we had were certainly gatekeepers of the pipeline. Okay. And I'll say Jake Chandler. Jake Chandler was a guy, he was a cone destroyer, and cones being, us non-operational controllers going through the pipeline. And he personally, he fucking got a boner of washing out as many cones as he could. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's so many stories of us getting smoked through various times throughout the day, at night. And we're all right. So once you get to air traffic control school, your team has to go out and find their team rock. All right. And the team rock has to be a certain size and a certain weight. And your team rock goes with you wherever you go. And you have to perform security on that rock. And it's something to bring the team together, something, accountability, responsibility on that aspect. And sometimes instructors, and unfortunately, sometimes instructors not even in the pipeline, would fuck with us with the rock. Okay. Because if, for instance, if you leave the rock behind, that's full carte blanche or permission for the instructor to come in and just wreck your day or wreck your week, whatever, how they see it. It's like, oh, you just left your teammate behind.
Can I just pause you real quick? This is like the third thing that you said. So you said, don't judge a book by its color. And then you just said full carte blanche. I just can't wait for the comments. But it's carte blanche. It's don't judge a book by its cover. I've noticed it 3 times, and it's my favorite thing that you do.
Look, he's explaining a very traumatic time in his life. All right, I love Jake Chandler, but I understand. Jake's one of my favorite people I've ever met in my life. But also,
those dudes exist, man. They exist everywhere. The second that you're talking about this instructor, I didn't know that guy, but I know that guy. But I know that instructor. Oh yeah, I know the person that would walk into our room when I was going through the pipeline. I know the person in every single school that I attended, from dive school to PJU to everywhere, that would just walk in and you're like, this guy wants me to die. He doesn't if I live, that's the only way that I'm going to ever put this beret on my head. But this guy specifically wants me to die.
Yeah.
Which is weird because Jake's actually a really nice person.
That's honestly the first time I ever heard someone say something nice about Jake.
Shout out to Jake Chandler. What's up, bud?
So Jake, to me, he was the epitome of the gatekeeper of the whole pipeline. I mean, he played the fucking role awesome. Look back at Jake came in, Sergeant Chandler came in the room, the whole team was just like, oh, fuck.
Here we go. What'd we do?
Yeah, ready to shit themselves. And
Yeah.
like he did it. He did it perfectly. So you go back to the rock and you're carrying the rock. And if you ever left without the rock, you know, it's that, like I was saying, the instructor would come in and just hammer the team. However, and I hate to use this word, I'm going to say safe space. When you're in an academic situation or in a classroom, that is our safe space for like our gear, book bags, clothing. We're bringing extra uniforms and our rock that we would line up uniformly across whatever. Like you come in, you got a, you know, hard wall on your left. You're going to line up all your gear on your left from, you know, front to back. It's uniform, water bottles. You would put the rock whether in the front or in the back, depending on who's carrying the rock at that time, right? It just wouldn't be a laundry or yard sale out in the fucking classroom, right? And we had a terrible instructor in this one particular module to where we were in the Sims, right? And she would fuck with us. She would fuck with us as an extent to try to ultimately try to get in trouble with our instructors. So she actually had this instructor that was a controller washout, had his airborne tabs, right? Come in and fucking like kick us out of the room. Get out of the room right now, blah, blah. And all of us are kind of like, you know, what the fuck's going on? So we're all coming out and we're like put down the hallway. And then she fucking takes our rock to like one of the instructors. Okay.
Oh,
and, like,
directly to jail. Directly to jail.
Directly jail. Yeah. No soup for you. Right.
Get out of here.
And so our proctor at the time was Sergeant Wiley, who's now a stow in the career field. And Sergeant Wiley was like the dad, soft-spoken, wasn't the physical individual instructor that Sergeant Chandler was, right? He was a littler guy, runner, could run for days.
Okay? He was the fastest man alive when he was there. Yeah.
So it was like one of those things, you're either going to get your, you know, ass kicked physically with Sergeant Chandler, or you're going to get your, you know, you're going to run your ass off with Sergeant Wiley. Okay. But also Sergeant Wiley would talk to you, and if you fuck up, he'd be like, gentlemen, you screwed up. And now you're going to pay. Line it up. Okay. And you would be like, oh, fuck. It would be like your dad coming into your room, like catching you beating off or something like that. Or like, you know, be like, son, I'm disappointed in you. Like, you should have thought through this a little more clearly. What were your actions? You know, what do you think the repercussions would be? Okay. Now there's going to be consequences. And you were just like, fuck. To where Sergeant Chandler were like, you're fucking going to get smoked now. You're fucking piece of shit, line up. So it was like,
by the way, it's not really that far out of the realm of possibility to walk into a combat control trainee room and watch and find actually somebody beating off. I do want to say that's not actually, this could be a real story
that's
from
probably
the pipeline.
That happened. That happened for sure. Okay. And so we got our rock is stolen. And then we come back to the room. We're like, what the fuck? What's going on? And then Sergeant Wiley gets our rock. And this is, we weren't there to see it, but this was what was told with us, to where we would line up in formation every day before we start PT, just took our rock and fucking just smashed it on the concrete. And it was like, you know, I don't want to say obliterated into 1,000 pieces, but it was like fucking demolished.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like our team rock. And we were like, oh fuck, our whole team is fucking done. Okay. And so our Lieutenant Luttrell, who highly look up to this day, he's like, I thought he was a great leader through the pipeline, went off and did like great combat control stuff, was called in because the stows are kept separate from, for academic purposes, are kept separate for the rest of us that are going through our academic portion of the day. And he comes back and he's like getting a full download. And then so we tell our side of the story to Luttrell. It's like, no, this is exactly what happened. She came in, she kicked us out, and then she went behind our backs and ultimately took our rock to Sergeant Wiley. And this is what happened. He's like, okay. So Lieutenant Luttrell at the time goes to Sergeant Wiley, clears the story up. Was like, no, this sergeant, now I remember her name now, Sergeant Potter. Sergeant Potter like deceived us, whatever. And he was like, okay, all right, gentlemen, you know, continue on through your day. But we had our rock demolished. And I remember myself and one of the team leads, Tech Sergeant Quinn, we went and got our rock, and we picked up the tens of pieces of the rock, and we fucking super glued it together. And we got fucking 50-mile-per-hour tape and fucking wrapped it around. So our rock looked like a bandaged up baby that we glued and taped together. And then like we showed up to the next day to where I believe Sergeant Wiley was going to be like, oh, you lost your rock. It was destroyed. Go find a new rock. To where we showed up the formation like nothing happened. And we had this like put together Frankenstein rock that became like, I don't want to say it became like legendary rock, but it became the rock that was like taped up. Like our air traffic control instructors in the end, like in the class, we give like a smaller rock to them to show appreciation for everything that they did. And we had a couple guys that we really appreciated. And they were like, no, we don't want a regular rock. We want a rock that you got taped up, that's like glued up, that you've got, because that rock's badass. Okay. So that's how much the rock meant to us. Okay. It was part of our team. We bandaged up our buddy. We bandaged him up. He was wounded. We put him back together and he's back in the fight with us. Right. Then a couple of weeks maybe go by and we're doing like testing during the simulation portion. Right. And like you got to go in your test. You can't talk to anybody. You can't really be looking at your notes. And you perform that test, to graduate for air traffic controller. And one of our teammates is passing notes back and forth with another guy. Right. And it's like one of those things that like half the team is performing their tests on the sim. Okay. And the other team is literally supposed to be on the wall, just sitting, doing nothing. Right. So half of us don't know what's going on. And Sergeant Potter catches one of the guys passing the notes. And he's like, you got to give me that note right now. And he's trying to scribble out the note. She gets the note.
Hopefully it just said Potter's gay. That's what I hope it said. It's like,
no, well, the note goes, I want to punch Potter in her face.
Oh, wow. Good. Same vibes.
Close.
Good.
Yeah.
I hope you read it. Yeah.
That. And she takes the note and takes it up to Cadre. Okay.
Oh no.
And mind you, and at first she blows up. I can't believe this, blah, blah, blah. And she like blows her lid. And then the majority of the room doesn't know what the fuck just happened. Okay. And mind you, we're about to graduate. We're like maybe a few weeks away from graduation. And we've already been destroyed through this whole pipeline of getting smoked through whatever hours in the morning, workouts, pool sessions, because we're team fuck up. We went there with like 28 people and we're down to like 7 or 8 people. Okay.
Oh,
so
good Lord.
This pipeline has just churned us. Okay. And Sergeant Potter reads this note to where we didn't know what the note was. We didn't even know there was a note. We just thought that they got caught talking. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Or sharing test answers or something like that. All right. And then so Sergeant Wiley comes to our room. And at this time, I think Lieutenant Luttrell is with our team at the time, because he's been communicated to what happened in the room, right? And we're all in the blind. And I remember we're lined up on the wall and he goes, okay, gentlemen, you're going to pay. And he walks out and he's like, meet me outside at this time in PTs or whatever. And we're like, fuck, what the fuck happened? And no one's telling us what happened.
It's the worst.
Okay.
My whole PJU team was like this too. It was like every time, like an instructor would walk in super mad and you just look around and be like, what now? What now?
So at this point in the whole entirety of the pipeline, one of my best friends had to wash back for personal reasons. Okay. It wasn't performance or anything like that. Something happened in his family. He had to go away for a time to come back. Okay. So he's doing admin stuff in the office. Okay. And he gives me the play-by-play of this way after the fact. Okay. His name's Wesley Whitehead. And he's in there doing computer stuff. Okay. And in this time, we're off wherever getting ready. And Sergeant Wiley walks up the stairs and they're like steel stairs. So you always hear someone coming up the stairs. Right. And he swings the door open and Sergeant Wiley's head comes into the door like this. And he's like, hey, is Jake in here? Jake, you in here? And Wes says, Jake leans back in his chair and is like, yeah, what's up? And he goes, hey, you want to smoke some cones? And he goes, or something like, hey, what you doing? And he's like, nothing. He's like, hey, you want to smoke some cones?
For everybody out there, this happens all the time. Every once in a while, there would be I'd be at Kirtland and somebody would poke their head and be like, "Hey, does anybody have an hour?" And like that was our code. Like that was it. Like, hey, anybody got a free hour? And you'd see just like little in Kirtland, it was like offices on two ends of a big room, right? But in the middle, it was a bullpen. It was like everybody had a cubicle, but the cubicles weren't like really that high, right? So if you just like poked your head up, you'd see it. But the worst days for the students were when somebody would poke it, like class would be going through, and somebody would be like, "Hey, anybody got an hour?" And you'd see like 3 heads pop up. They'll be, "I got an hour." And then it was just chaos.
And Wes says that Sergeant Chandler, Jake's reply was like, yes, I do.
Oh no. My heart rate is at 190 because I know that.
So and I can like live back that moment of Wes like being like, oh fuck. So Sergeant Chandler, like we have full cadre. We had like, it was forget the guy's first name, McCormick, Sergeant McCormick, Blanton, Sergeant Chandler, Sergeant Weiler there. And it was just a continuous smoke section for like, literally it went to like legal terms, okay? Because something later that I'll mention. And then so we were doing grass and gorillas in like the field, and they took us out the front gate. And so at Keesler, out the front gate was, I forget what the highway is right there that's on the Gulf Coast Highway. So you got beach, and then they take us to the beach to where we're doing like iteration after iteration in the sand, running back and forth, doing buddy carries. And I remember doing the wheelbarrows with this guy. All right. And I'm holding his feet and we're back and forth doing wheelbarrows and stuff like that. And it was like, we were at a portion of like, it pays to be a winner. Okay. So pays to be a winner. You do this session great. You can take a break, like a 20-second rest break or something like that. And if I can remember this teammate's name, right, let's just say his last name was Smith. And at one point he was like my roommate in the pipeline. Okay. And we're doing personal wheelbarrows with Carinathan, and all of a sudden you hear this like loudest cry, ah! And you like turn around, and the guy's like grabbing, he's like sprawling on his back, all in like doing snow angels in the sand, kicking and screaming like ah! And like the instructors are like, what the Smith, get the fuck up! And all of us are like sand caked everywhere. We got snot coming out, trying to get fluids and whatnot. You're just smoked. And Smith is like, ah. And I see one of the instructors, Blanton, go over there, and he's like kicking sand in his face when he's walking over there. And he's like, what the fuck's your problem? And he's like, ah. And I remember hearing this. I remember hearing Blanton go, I've had people shot in combat and they're not yelling as much as you are. And that obviously doesn't do anything. Smith is just like, ah. And so he's not moving or anything. So they call medical. And so it was like, we got to get medical. So ambulance comes, and like they can only get so far into the dune or into the sand. And like they bring out the trolley right to the sand. And like, we have to go over and carry the trolley into the sand, load them up and get them back into the ambulance. And the ambulance takes off, and we're still doing our smoke session. And about that time, like reveille happens. So like, everybody from the base is leaving. And so it's like a terrible gate to where it like always causes traffic out the gate. And we're right there in the sand in front of the gate, just getting fucking annihilated. And everybody's blaring their horns, like leaving the gate. And they're all waving like, good job. Yeah, woo, go. Like, this is awesome. And we're just
not helpful, guys. No, this is the worst day of my life. Some A1 dork is like telling you're doing a good job.
We're just getting hammered, right? And so that time, like, we finished the sand session. We got to carry all the gear up back to where like the schoolhouse is and stuff. And then I learned this later with Wes, is that they have to give us time to eat by by doctrine.
ATC rules. Yeah.
They have to get us time to eat. And there's, not to say an argument, but what I'm told is in the room that Sergeant Chandler and Blanton want to continue smoking us through the day. And Sergeant Wiley's like, no, we have to let them eat, Jake. We got to let them eat. And he's like, they don't fucking need to eat. And then it was like, we'll get them afterwards. And then Sergeant Wiley was like, no, they're finished. They're done for the day. We got to let them sleep to get them back to the next day. And they like wanted to continue on. It's like, no, per regs and per law, like what you just said, we can't. So there was like Sergeant Wiley was like, no, we've smoked them enough. They've had enough, and continue on. To where Sergeant Chandler had that like gatekeeper mentality. It was, I want to smash cones. And so that was
funny
the end of the session.
Is eventually at that course, Chandler did at one point end up being in charge. He was like the NCOIC or whatever of that course. And he was a lot more like Wiley once it was, he was the legal responsible one for everything than he was. Like, he had people wanting to smash cones and he'd be like, maybe.
It's the evolution of every single instructor. Every instructor gets in and they want to just they're like, oh no, they're just mad. You get one bad dude on your team and then you go to be an instructor and you're like, oh no, I am single-handedly through my sheer force of will, I'm going to change every student. And that is like, as you evolve, everybody goes from Chandler to Wiley. Everybody goes to that set where you're like, hey, maybe we should do this differently.
Yeah. So is that point to where we're like released to our dorms. And I said earlier that from our graduating team, the team that was ahead of us to the team that was behind us, right? And I think at this point we might have been even the senior team. Yeah, we were the senior team. And so the team behind us, we were known as Team Fuck Up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the 7 of us at this time. We got rucks on. Okay, we're in our like BDUs. We're fucking looked like you just came out of the beach, out of the ocean, sugar cookied all up, snot everywhere. And we're coming up the stairs and we hit that main like hallway and you could see all the other teams' heads are coming out like this. And they're like, oh, fuck. And like at this point, you really see like the camaraderie of the group was like the teams came together and the other team came out. I remember they like helped us to the room. They like helped us take off the rucks. And it was like, hey man, I got you. Come on. Some of them were washbacks and was like, we'll get you. Got us like undressed into the showers kind of deal to there. And I remember being like sitting down with one of my teammates and I couldn't move. Yeah. And I remember saying up to one of my teammates and I remember going, dude, I got to fucking piss, but I can't move. And he goes, dude, just piss and I'll clean it up. Don't even worry about it.
That's a good teammate. That's a good teammate right there, baby.
Like, dude, just fucking piss and I'll clean it up. Don't even fucking worry about it. And that's what you did. I fucking pissed right there and you got fucking mopped it up. And that's what I remember. I'm like, and that goes back as being like the smoke session lore of our like teams that were there at the time. It was like, fucking, you're going to have it like that. And then ultimately we graduated of like the 40 or the 38 that went there. Ultimately we graduated. It was Lieutenant Luttrell, Matt Warner, Trent Collins, Blake Echeverry, myself, Josh Craig. There was like 6 of us that graduated from the original like 32 or 38 that ended up with that team and that went on to the CCS that combined a couple of teams. And then like passing that Air Traffic Control School, we didn't go immediately to CCS. We go back to San Antonio, and then you would go to you went to Airborne and you went to SERE school, to which in that portion of the pipeline, it was like vacation. Like you had climbed over the huge mountain of Air Traffic Control School. And then I believe I went to SERE first, which was like camping in the woods in the mountains of Washington, which was unbelievable. It was great. There was like an amazing experience in that. Just like our particular class at SERE, just everything clicked.
Nice.
And we were actually, my SERE class was actually in the academic portion, the minimum amount of time that it could be. Like the commandant legally had to send up a waiver to get whoever to sign it to say, hey, this team met all the maximum requirements to stay in the session the shortest amount of time. Like there was an actual waiver that had to be signed. So it was pretty cool how that broke down. It was actually pretty funny how it broke down. And then Airborne. And then Airborne was like one of the biggest jokes going into dealing with the Army. It was like first time seeing how big Army works, being in the Air Force. And then what on top of that, it was like late in the summer, it was late in August. So it was like the last class of ROTC. So it was like like times it by 3 of what I've been told it normally is because of all the ROTC students. And I actually had like a female West Point student try to lock me up for whatever something. Like, come here, I'm going to do fuck blah blah blah. And I was like, whoa, hey now.
Hey,
No.
take it easy, lady. I don't. Why are you raising your voice at me?
I was like, is that
First of
ROTC?
all,
What's going on?
I'm an ATC grad, so you better watch your tone.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but I'm pretty badass.
Yeah, pretty badass. But what was very cool about our contingent of the Air Force block is that it was us controllers. I had one SERE guy that was going through that was going to be ultimately a ejection seat specialist. Like he was trying out ejection seats. Okay.
Oh, nice.
Fucking have fun with that. And then like our proctor was an F-16 driver, and to like be able to like talk to him and I wouldn't say mentors, but have him kind of all right and stuff like that was great to have there. And then our Sergeant Airborne's was like the collection. It wasn't all Army. It was like Navy. We had a Marine guy. We had a Navy guy. We had a former Air Force TAC-P guy. And then we had like Sergeant Airborne. So they were actually kind of chilled with us and kind of funny with us. And another thing that was great about being in Airborne is that I'm back in Georgia. And then being back in Georgia over the weekends, I took some teammates to Savannah and then to Atlanta, Georgia, to where we just had like one of those hell-raising weekends. And it goes back to what was cool was showing my teammates this guy that was from Savannah, Georgia, that was a former college bartender that knew everybody in that area that we went out. And what was funny is that I took him back to the family restaurant that's a bar. Okay. And then we just kind of walked in, and they didn't, I told them that it was my family's restaurant, but they didn't click. Okay. And there was like 4 or 5 of us, and we get in there, and I go immediately behind the bar and start making drinks for us. Okay. And one of the guys comes back to me and was like, fucking Stacy just went behind this bar and started making drinks for us. I didn't know what the fuck was going on.
Yeah. You know, guys tell stories, and they're not always true. But
yeah. And so it was cool showing them Savannah and Atlanta. Going back to Airborne was just fucking terrible. It was August. It was the hottest we'd ever been. No shade, no air, and wearing the worst fucking uniforms you can possibly be in. It's like the winter weight uniforms.
Gross.
Do the airborne jumps, come back to Texas, and I'm getting slotted for CCS. And I actually got an earlier CCS class than I was scheduled for, because I wanted to be with the majority class of my air traffic control school, because it was Josh Craig, Lieutenant Luttrell, Blake Luttrell, and Blake Echeverry. And at the end time of air traffic control school, they're like, hey, you and Trent should look to get on our combat control team, okay, and see if we can get you up scheduled. And I was like, oh, how do we do that? And I was like, oh, you should, call Chief Humphreys. And Chief Humphreys was like the pipeline chief, the pipeline manager, okay. And mind you, I'm a A1C in the Air Force, fresh, don't know anything, okay.
Hey, bro. Hey, Chief. Hey, got your cell phone number off the recall roster. What's up, man? How's your day going?
So I remember like talking to him, and I remember like talking to Josh, Craig and Blake Echeverry, and I was like, hey, how do I make it happen? It was like, just call Chief Humphreys. You'd be like, tell him that you're in this class with us and you want to get an earlier CCS class so you can be with us. Sound motivated. Be like, "Hoo-yah, Chief! I want to be in this. Be with my team." And I was like, "You sure that will work? You should be all right." And they're like, yeah, it would be great. It'll show you taking initiative and being motivated. I was like, oh, okay. So I get the number, And I call him.
You
And I remember
idiots.
being like,
I love how there was like a conglomerate of just idiots that are just like, no, this will totally work. Yeah, just call him. No,
yeah.
just
And I
no,
remember
just throw a
like,
hoo-yah at him.
yeah, get the voicemail. Who got Chief Humphreys? This is Airman Stacy, class, whatever class it was at ATC. And, you know, I looking to see if I can get an earlier class day at CCS with my teammates. Would love to be able to go through them, continue on. Super motivated. Hoo-yah. And I hang up, whatever, you know. And it was like maybe like 3 weeks later, I get this call. And it's like, hey, is this Airman Stacy? And I'm like, yes. It was like, oh, this is Chief Humphreys. And then I'm like, oh, who ya, Chief? What's going on? It was like, yeah, I see you called and left a voicemail and you want to get on an earlier CCS class? And I was like, who ya, Chief? And I explained the story with who I was with and the reason why. And it was like, and you thought it was, he didn't say it like this, but he was like, yeah, and you called me directly to tell me, huh? And I was like, who ya, Chief?
It's like the meme. It's like, you should have in your head been going, I'm in danger.
Yeah. Well,
Like, how did you get my number? He's just confused. He's like, I don't.
Yeah.
First of all, quick question.
Zero.
How dare you? Second question, why are you the way that you are, you
Right.
fucking idiot?
That was it. He was like, all right, well, you know what? I'm going to see what I can do. And then I got on the earlier CCS class. And then maybe it was like a day later, I said, Lieutenant Luttrell, Blake Luttrell comes up and he was like, hey, did you call Chief Humphreys? And I was like, yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. Had a good talk. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You told
I was
me
like, "He
to,
does
sir."
me." and he was just kind of like,
God,
I can see it. Fucking.
I love seeing the look wash over. I don't know how many officers I've worked for. I just want to give a quick apology to every single one that's ever had to deal with me. You know how many times I've seen that look come over an officer's face? Hey, Aaron, did you do this thing? Oh yeah, I totally did that thing. Okay, dude.
And so here's just one of the, which I didn't know at the time, idiot things that I did, and would do some more idiot things for sure. And he was just like, he's like, next time, just, go through me or proper channels and stuff like that. And quite frankly, for this type of thing, I didn't know what the proper channels was. And to my defense, I had multiple, and upper enlisted or middle enlisted, I would say. It was like, yeah, do this, get on it. And to be the truth be told, I'm glad I did it because it got me in that earlier combat control class. Ultimately I got what I wanted out of it and needed. But quite honestly, looking back on it, I should have taken the time to recover a little bit and then prepare my body a little bit more for CCS class to get in there. And then up at that time, it was like the three of us had the fastest selection pipeline to date. It was myself, Blake Echeverry, and Joshua Craig, and Lieutenant Luttrell, 4 of us, excuse me. And then I was told later, it was like, hey, we actually went through the pipeline too fast from an injury protocol scenario. I would tell you now that if Josh Craig would have been like, no, I could have done it faster. He probably could have done it faster. And so combat control, we get to combat control school. That was fucking heinous in its own right. Ultimately, I'm set back after getting to STTS because I popped my ACL. So I was at ATTS for like 9 months longer than I warmed out that welcome for sure. And then ultimately got to the 2-1, deployed as a JTAC, supported, if I can remember correctly, I think it was 7th and 3rd group, got back to the unit, and then lo and behold, who takes over as team sergeant? A very loving Jake Chandler.
You have to
So I'm
whisper
like,
his
oh
name.
fuck. And so I remember too, like the majority of the team knew Jake either physically through the pipeline or knew his reputation. And quite honestly, everybody was like, fuck this guy. We don't want him on our team.
Yeah.
And because we were like, how is he going to be when he gets to the team? And then I remember team leads comes over, was like, hey, Jake, we've talked to Jake. Jake's coming to he's excited coming to the team. He's looking forward to being with the guys. He's looking to get forward on the mission, wants to be a great team sergeant. And there were some of us were like, still fuck that guy. I don't care. And then some of us were like, all right, that's cool. And I will say this, that like I was the guy that was like, all right, looking forward for someone with, you know, deployment experience, team experience, come in to mentoring the team, set up for a great training block, you know, get ready for the next deployment. And when he came to the team, it was immediately, he was a fucking shithole.
Man, I was hoping this was
asshole.
gonna.
This is not a redemption story.
No, I was hoping it was a redemption story. I was hoping it's like, oh, he was just playing that role as an instructor, and he was just doing all this stuff.
I remember being in the room, and I remember coming in and like giving him a heads up about something. And it was something about, I can't remember correctly, like people who were registered to drive certain vehicles on the base with like munitions, you had to go through certain training. They were setting up like a demo or something like that. And I remember just being like, hey, Sarge, just want to let you know that these two guys have the specifications for it. Because at this time, I'm actually getting out of the Air Force. And he was like, he just looks at me and he goes, fuck you, didn't ask you. And I just remember being like, and I remember looking to one of my teammates and they're like, see, some things just never changed or whatever like that.
Man, that's tough.
Yeah. And I was just kind of like, not doing yourself any favors.
Yeah.
And then he had this, like the whole PT mentality. That's a different thing. But I would say a redeeming story for Sergeant Chandler. Absolutely. That I had something medically that I had to leave for some family. Went straight to him, gave him the lowdown of what it was and what I was going to do. And he goes, okay, take care of your family. And I remember looking at him because I remember going to him and being like, fuck, is he going to prevent me from, you know, doing what I need to do to support my family? And, or like, am I going to fucking go to fisticuffs with this fucking guy because I'm going to tell him it's like, fuck you, I'm going to this. He was like, you know what?
Right.
Go take care of your family. And I remember,
Tab, we do have to transition here. It's funny. My own words are ringing in my head. I'm like, hey, yeah, long story long, we're about that. Well, now we're running up and we haven't even talked about WeDefy yet. So we have to transition to the reason why you're actually here. So we'll have you on for a part 2 and we'll get the other stories, get the you know, the actual operational stuff. We'll get it back. But, you know, through your career, you know, you get through the pipeline and we already kind of like laid the groundwork, right? Like you grew up grappling and on the mats, and jiu-jitsu informed you throughout your entire career. For those that aren't tracking, Tab is a Renzo Gracie black belt. Like he trained in the blue basement out there. That is the bulk of his life. But then you found yourself involved in WeDefy. I'm going to pull the website up here as you kind of talk about it. I was happy to be at least tangentially associated with WeDefy at MCon. I've known of you guys for a really long time, but basically WeDefy is bringing athletes, especially athletes that have traumatic injuries and or, you know, issues, you know, in their careers, and helping them find tribes and find purpose through jiu-jitsu and the sport of jiu-jitsu. So obviously, you know, I am a jiu-jitsu guy. I find it helps, you know, all of those things that we already talked about, being able to be resilient, taking L's day after day after day, just getting smashed on the mats and finding those small wins, right? You know, jiu-jitsu for me is, you know, you're never going to beat it. You know, I've never done this, but you could walk into a class and you could submit maybe a kid's class, you could submit every single person that you roll with. And at the end of the day, you'll be laying down and go to sleep and be like, oh crap, but I should have been able to transition to that backside Kimura and I just didn't. And you'll ruminate on it. But let's talk a little bit about WeDefy and your role there and how important jiu-jitsu is, you know, in those spaces.
absolutely. And it was a transition. It was a tool that I helped use transition out of the military as well. It was a time that ultimately I had moved from Atlanta, Georgia to New York City. And then one of my teammates at Renzo Gracie's came up to me. And this guy's actually the most interesting man in the room. Sven Pfeiffer. Great shout out to Sven. Most interesting man in the room. Unbelievable background from childhood where he grew up to ultimately like the advanced educations that he's obtained and what he's doing in the real world. He came up to me and he's German. So he comes up to me. He's like, Tab, have you ever heard of this WeDefy thing? And I was like, no, what's going on with it? He was like, they get veterans to train jiu-jitsu. And I was like, whoa, all right. I was like, I love veterans and I love jiu-jitsu, so I got to check it out. So ultimately just did my own Google search, popped it up, saw what it is. I was like, oh, wow, they get disabled combat vets to train jiu-jitsu. Ultimately, what they do is they produce scholarships for that transitioning veteran to get into jiu-jitsu. And we feel the regiment, community, the primal nature of it has, great repercussions for the betterness of veterans coming in, both mentally and physical. So I checked it out, clicked on it. I can't remember if I called directly a number that I found or an email or I emailed. And it was literally like
you called direct.
I was gonna say
you found the person in charge.
You found the
like,
CEO.
Hi,
well, ultimately, that's what I did, because like 2 hours later, I got a call from this guy named TJ, and TJ he's the VP at the time and a former F-16 driver, and we kind of connect there. I was like, hey, I'm at Henzo's, I'm a brown belt and former controller, so there was already similarities right there. And quite honestly, the foundation was excited to have kind of anybody in this New York area just kind of pop up, because it had been like a black hole for the foundation, which was super surprising because of the large veteran community associated with NYC, the large veteran support, and then all the great jiu-jitsu in the world. And then at that time, go ahead, Trent.
Wait, really a bunch of vets moved to New York City? I just personally, that is not where I would go. You know what I mean?
You'd be surprised how much of a veteran community you can find in NYC for sure.
Okay.
Which was surprised. I was surprised at it too. And then what's crazy too is it's just, people cross-pollinated, working in all kind of industries, verticals, environments. And so at that time too, being pre-pandemic, okay, we could have that conversation of whatever we think about that. We'll go back to
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Listen, man, I got a heart out, and it's less than 6 hours from now, so we can't even start talking.
Yeah. So it's literally some of the best jiu-jitsu in the world is in NYC at various schools. Okay, especially at Henzo's at the time, because we got the famous DDS.
Yeah, Danaher Death Squad. Yeah, you got Gordon Ryan. That was before the split with B team, so you had everybody, Nicky Rod, everybody.
So that being in what Henzo's is known as the blue basement, just being a fly on the wall in the blue basement in those years was like you were seeing the best of jiu-jitsu and in combatives, okay? Because where Henzo's is physically located is 1 block south of Penn Station, Madison Square Garden. So if you got anything in the combatives arena happening at Madison Square Garden, you've got them, they're coming to Henzo's either to train with the teams there, to train privately, or just to come through and basically see the mecca of what Henzo's is right there, okay? You've seen all kind of people there. Matter of fact, prior to Tyson's last bout, he was training there privately up in the top room. And it was like, hey, everybody was coming. I was like, hey, don't say anything. But Tyson's up top. You can't go up there. And then later, like after you've heard it like 50 times, what happens to the don't say anything? But
right, yeah. First rule of Fight Club.
Yeah, first rule of Fight Club. So being at Henzo's, being in Black Hole for We Defy, and then ultimately I went to it wasn't immediately. It was post-pandemic. We had our pandemic experience. We actually left NYC, went to LA and to Savannah, back to Savannah, Georgia, to where I'm from, and then made our way back to Henzo's. So we're making our way back to Henzo's, and I'm like going to the leadership. I was like, hey, I want to kick this thing off with We Defy. And then I was like, hey, let's do a fundraiser. Let's do a seminar event. And it was kind of funny how both channels were looking at it, because I went to Henzo's leadership, being my direct instructors, and the management team was like, hey, let's do this thing for We Defy. And they were kind of like, oh, We Defy wants us to do this with them. And then I went to We Defy. I was like, hey, I want to do this at Henzo's. And like We Defy was like, Henzo's want to do this with us. And so my plan was just to kind of I look back at my college bartending days and college party days. Throw the best party you can possible to impress the girl at the party. And then that's ultimately what I wanted to do. I wanted to impress the girl at the party in college, but throw the biggest seminar fundraising event that we could. And it caught off like wildfire, like with our local team and with the regional We Defy team. And it was a huge success. Our first one, we raised around like $35,000, which to date was the largest fundraising event for We Defy, like a single event. And then we carried on to the second year to where we grew the experience to make it a little bit more of like a weekend experience. We promoted it. It was like, hey, come into NYC, come and train at Henzo's, 2-day seminar benefiting We Defy. We put on like an executive dinner at a great spot in NYC in the business district at American Cut with a great friend of mine, who's the general manager, Aki Suzaki, who set us up. Great shout out there. So if you're in NYC, you want to go to a great steakhouse, go to American Cut. And then we put on a social for more of like the larger experience at one of our teammates' bars. And the whole thing was to not only do a 2-day seminar and raise the funds, or raise donations to create scholarships, but was to create an experience with the Jiu-Jitsu and the veteran community to kind of intertwine. Because quite honestly, one of my favorite things is, like Aaron brought this up earlier, it was like the MCON event. It's just being around a bunch of veterans again.
Yeah.
You know,
that was the teamiest of team events, man. And I'll be honest with you, like it felt pretty good just to be, around just doing team stuff.
Right. And so with that first year experience and being successful, it was like, okay, how do we grow this 10 to 15%? How do we make it larger? So we did it the second year, and we did those other experiences. And then we grew the fundraising by like 3 times the amount of our first one. And then, so we're planning our third one, which will be this coming up President's Day weekend, to where we're looking to increase 10 to 15% from not only from a donations raised and collected, but from an attendance, from an experience. We want to be able to do a little bit more socials, get more people together, intertwine that jiu-jitsu and veteran communities so that we can support each other. And quite honestly, I'm looking forward to seeing some of those old teammates and some of those old We Defy teammates up in the North Jersey, Pennsylvania, NYC area. So it's like one of those things, like being back on team, being around a bunch of the same like minds, supporting a great cause. I'm just looking forward to driving that next.
Well, that brings us to now, as you have the next event coming up. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So our next event is going to be this President's Day weekend. It's coincide with Valentine's Day weekend. So we're trying to promote that, try to bring awareness through social channels, our own private networks. It's one of those things that is like, hey, not only come to New York over the 3-day weekend, come with loved ones, spend some time with us, with your loved ones. We're going to do a 2-day event. It's going to be basically both days, Saturday and Sunday, 1 to 4. We'll look to bring on some special guests in the, we will say some VIP people in the combatives arena. I don't know who those people are going to be yet, but
it's Jake Chandler.
So I can't.
It's Jake Chandler. It's either Jake Chandler or Gordon Ryan.
Yeah,
but
actually,
you didn't say it. I said.
I would love to have Jake Chandler to come in there. So it would be great to see him. I hope he's doing well. I hope he's done great.
Anytime that you have wronged a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt out of Renzo Gracie's gym, anytime that guy says I would love to see Jake Chandler, that's not what that means. Something completely different.
I have nothing but great things and great experiences to say much later about my experience with Chandler. He did he had a principle and he played that principle to the T. But there was actually, going back to the air traffic control, I had some mat time with Jake Chandler, and it was a great experience that my whole team got to watch. So that's maybe a different story. But to the fundraising event, ultimately, what's great about the foundation is that we are happy and excited to say that out of every dollar, 83 to 85 cents goes directly to creating a scholarship. And our national average of these scholarships, or that first year's, we use $2,500 as our mile marker. Okay. Because it's nationally different from, regional and school to school. But that's a mile marker that we use. For every $2,500 we create or we raise, we're able to push that scholarship. And what's fantastic about it is that the foundation is growing. We've scholarshiped over, I think it's like over 1,500 veteran athletes, and we've got close to 1,000 schools that we can say that we have approved facilities that we can take, that these scholarship veteran athletes can go train at. We're at,
and just
the majority.
real quick, real quick for everybody that's watching the video out there, and I hope you're watching the video podcast, go over to WeDefyFoundation.org. You've seen it here on the screen, and you can see not only, you know, how it is that you become a gym to find approved training facilities, but right here, as you can see, there's a little donate button. So if you want to be one of those people that actually joins the team here and that it can get to that $2,500 mark to get another athlete, you can go to this donate tab here, and anything helps. $1, $5, $10, it doesn't matter. Take your cup of coffee that you were going to buy today and go ahead and give it to We Defy, because they're doing great stuff. Go ahead, Tab. I just wanted to get that out there.
That's a great picture. I tell you what, that's a great picture right there to show the success of the event. That was taken at last year's events. We created a stand and repeat model. So that's the banner that you're seeing in the background. If you could circle back to that image real quick. And I would say that's the heart of the Northeast team right there, coming out of Pennsylvania, coming out of New Jersey, the local area, that really make events like this successful. They're going to, the majority of individuals in that picture are helping me set up. They take the merch table and they run with it. Don't have to worry about that. And that's really like one of the excitements of throwing events like this, is being back with some of the core people, being back with individuals who take just as much passion in seeing these events and the foundation being successful. I would say right there in that picture, like more than half of them are veterans. And just a quick shout out to Brian Grant, who's in that photo, who just received his brown belt last night. He's coming out of the Delaware local area. And so individuals like that ensure the success of the foundation. He's the director of our ambassador program. And so you can't say enough great things about individuals that are in that picture that make this cause that happen. With the foundation, or excuse me, with the event, we're going to have some great jiu-jitsu, great leaders in the space of combatives leading the way with what the greatest and combatives techniques are. Last year we had Jared Gordon, a journeyman UFC fighter, MMA fighter, who is a Renzo Gracie black belt, come in and share some of the, his best techniques that he uses to be successful in the MMA arena in UFC. We're looking forward to having some other VIPs to come in this year. I'm hoping to have an Olympian to come in to share some of his experience. We're looking to have, like, we'll say, a highly celebrated veteran to come in and share some of their experiences. We'll have that 2-day event. Like last year, we had a huge social on Saturday night. That's going to be open bar, food available. And then like last year, what we were able to do that was the 10 or 15% growth from the year prior is that we're looking for more sponsorships. We're looking for more organizations, more businesses that have veteran initiatives to come in and say, hey, we understand some of the things that you're doing, because the focal point is the veteran. And in our organization, with these initiatives, the focal points are veterans too. And we'd love to be able to run parallel with you, supporting each other. That's something that we are always looking forward to have conversations with, always looking forward to, and seeing how we can spread the white space to get ultimately more of our veteran community training on the mats for jiu-jitsu to better their physical and mental well-being. I really think that's like the highlight of what we are doing at We Defy.
Man, I love it. Everybody check out WeDefyFoundation.org. Donate if you can. If you can make it to the event, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. If MCon and the previous events are any indication of how this is going to go, it's going to be it'll be the best again. Like, you guys are going to far surpass everything that you've done. Really proud of everything that you've done, Tab. We want to say thanks for coming on. Go to WeDefyFoundation.org. Make sure to check out everything that they're doing. Tab, we got to get you on for another one, man. You are a fan of Long Story Long. I like it.
Yeah, thank you. I told you I wouldn't. Yeah, try to cut it short.
I like, yeah. If that was you trying to cut it short, homie.
Aaron, I appreciate the time, Aaron. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share my story, my experience, and more importantly, what we're doing with We Defy. Trent, it was great to meet you. Great talking with you, and I definitely look forward to come back to ONESREADY and being some more long story long.
Hell yeah.
Appreciate
Here for
it.
Everybody else out there, keep training hard. If you're not doing jiu-jitsu, get into it. Trent, we're rolling when you come out here very shortly. So whether you like it or not, All right, everybody. Have a good one. Go to onesready.com. Check us out wherever we are. If you're liking the podcast, go ahead, like, subscribe, share it to friends, get it out there. Absolutely destroy that notification bell so that you know there, and leave a fun comment. You know I love the comments. We'll see you next time.
Later, y'all.